जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य बीबीटी फाउंडर आचार्य शील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So today we will read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. And we have verse 44 for today. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Etam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Vishyan. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtam arhanti surya. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Mataji, please. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Itam bhavena kathito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi param Drashtum arhanti surya. Word to word, please repeat. Itam, in these features, bhavena, the matter of creation and destruction. Kathita, described. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Bhagavattama by the great transcendentalists. Na not itam in this bhavena features he only param most glorious drashtum to see arhanti deserve suraya great devotees. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The great transcendentalists thus describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. Purport. The Lord is not only the creator and destroyer of the material manifestations of his different energies. He is more than a simple creator and destroyer, for there is his feature of Ananda, or his pleasure feature. This pleasure feature of the Lord is understood by the pure devotees only, and not by others. The impersonalist is satisfied simply by understanding the all-pervasive influence of the Lord. This is called Brahman realization. Greater than the impersonalist is the mystic who sees the Lord situated in his heart as Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord. But there are pure devotees who take part in the direct pleasure, Ananda potency of the Lord, by factual reciprocation of loving service. The Lord in his abode, called the Vaikuntha planets, which are eternal manifestations, always remains with his associates and enjoys transcendental loving services by his pure devotees in different transcendental humors. The pure devotees of the Lord thus undergo a practice of that devotional service to the Lord during the manifestation of the creation, and take full advantage of the manifestation by qualifying themselves to enter into the kingdom of God. The Bhagavad Gita 1855 confirms this. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatvate gyatva visate tad anantaram. By development of pure devotional service, one can factually know the Lord as He is, and thus be trained in the bona fide service of the Lord, and be allowed to enter into the direct association of the Lord in so many capacities. The highest glorious association with the Lord is made possible in the planet of Goloka Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna enjoys himself with the gopis and his favorite animals, the Surabhi cows. A description of this transcendental land of Krishna is given in the Brahma Samhita, which is considered by Lord Sri Chaitanya to be the most authentic literature in this connection. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. I seek the blessings of all my superiors here and good wishes of all the well-wishers. The great transcendentalists thus describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. So, these features refers to what we have been discussing in previous verses, more specifically to Vishwarupa. And as in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about how the Lord is not just the creator or destroyer of the material manifestations, but there are other things, other activities the Lord does, which is called the Ananda Rasa, the pleasure, potency. Everyone is seeking pleasure in so many different ways, but the pleasure we seek materially, there are two features to that. It's temporary, and it actually doesn't bring like complete satisfaction. It's like always there is lack of satisfaction, and the living entity keeps looking for more and more and more. But due to the conditioned nature, one is not able to realize this, that what's going on, I've been trying so much, but it doesn't bring satisfaction. In one of the purports in 7th canto, Srila Prabhupada explains that it's only happening in the mind. In the mind, the living entity is imagining, I could get pleasure this way or that way or this way, or this position or that position, so many things, or this situation or that situation, this place, like that. But there is never like complete satisfaction. And the same is even on the spiritual realization, spiritual path. Like here, it's mentioned, this pleasure feature of the Lord is understood by the pure devotees only and not by others. So in this verse, after discussing different features of the Lord, Sukadeva Goswami actually preparing us to get into the more personal pastimes of the Lord. And like I mentioned last time, in the next canto, we'll be discussing starting with Varahadev and then following different avatars. So in actually text 47 here, Sukadeva Goswami gives a hint. So this is like a great style of writing. Like even in movies and stuff we see, or serials, they leave a certain element of excitement for people to come back to it. So there are like a series of movies. So same way Sukadeva Goswami, he's giving a hint here in text 47. He says, O king, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features, with the specific symptoms of each. But for the present, let me explain unto you the Padma Kalpa. So what's this Padma Kalpa? Is mentioned, it's in this Padma Kalpa, the incarnation of Lord Varaha took place. So Sukadeva Goswami is giving hint that because Parikshit Maharaj, he's been hearing about Vishwarup, and one may think Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee, he would want to hear more personal pastimes. So in a way, Sukdev Goswami is kind of indicating just hold on, and it's coming. So it's like a great way of speaking and delivery of these beautiful messages. Now, one of the points that kind of is important to take from this verse is becoming qualified to experience these pastimes, to realize these pastimes, and actually understand what's going on exactly. Are we seeing what's actually happening, or is just like the surface understanding? So here, quoting this verse, Srila Prabhupada is explaining, by development of pure devotional service, one can factually know the Lord as He is, and thus be trained in the bona fide service of the Lord, and be allowed to enter into the direct association of the Lord in so many capacities. So, one has to be trained to start with, and that's the practice of bhakti yoga, right? That's what we are doing here. And then it says, by development of pure devotional service, one can factually know the Lord. So unless one comes to pure devotional service, one may have some realization of God, but there won't be a complete realization. So the point to understand is that ultimately one has to come to pure devotional service. Otherwise, there won't be a complete realization. One won't be able to actually understand these pastimes. One won't be able to understand the Lord. And what to talk about personal exchanges with the Lord. So I thought of a verse that's very relevant to this aspect. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchyate. It's also a definition of bhakti. When I was in Vrindavan, one devotee asked me, do you know the definition of bhakti? And I was like really scratching my memory. Oh man, what's the verse? And then like he quoted like few verses. I was like, Prabhu, you are amazing. So we also have to actually learn these things, because otherwise, like someone comes from outside, they ask you, okay, tell me what is bhakti yoga. What are we gonna say? So I was amazed by this devotee that, and I could appreciate that he knows this. So it inspired me to learn these things. So yeah, unless one becomes nirmalam, so mala means the dirt, the dust, and nirmalam means like completely pure. One has to come to one's heart has to be nirmalam. And what's the process? By serving Rishikesh, the master of the senses. When the senses are engaged in the master of the senses, then what will happen? One can become Gudakesha, like Arjuna. He conquered his sleep. Actually, for Arjuna it said, even in the sleep, he would be chanting Krishna, Krishna. He was remembering Krishna even while sleeping, like his body is resounding names of Krishna. How amazing is that? So, yeah, when we have to cultivate, we have to train ourselves, we have to understand these deeper concepts, and not only that, we have to practice it. That's what we are doing here. But I was reading some of the purports and some important points that were very relevant. So I'll share a couple of them. Um, Another analogy Srila Prabhupada gave is about how the sun expands itself through sun rays and heat. So sun is present everywhere through its energy, but at the same time it's not present. So the understanding of impersonal aspect is like just understanding like the Brahma Jyoti, the Brahman realization. But then there is the Paramatma feature and the Bhagavan realization. So unless one comes to the personal aspect, one is just appreciating, just like someone may appreciate the sunshine, the sun rays. But one may not even have proper understanding about the sun, what to talk about more. So this is this analogy actually is mentioned at a number of places in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita. But the point Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that they should know that the rays of the sun are secondary to the sun. And similarly, the impersonal gigantic form of the Lord is also secondary to the personal form as Purushottama. There's a beautiful verse in Brahma Samhita. Ananda Chinmaya Ras Pratibhavita Bis Tabhirya eva nij rupataya kalabhi Goloka eva nivasati akhilatma bhuta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. It's a very wonderful verse, and Srila Prabhupada, he is given like a whole description quoting this verse at different places in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. So one of the points that he mentions is that devotees acquire qualities almost same as the Lord. And he gives example of Prahlad Maharaj. He says like Prahlad Maharaj is simultaneously present in the spiritual world and also in the material world. How do we know this? It's given in the Bhagavatam in 7.4.35 purport. There is mentioned that we know from the pastime of Bali Maharaj, how when Bali Maharaj was imprisoned and punished by Lord Vamanadev, and then being pleased, Lord Vamanadev agreed to become his doorkeeper. And then when in this pastime Prahlad Maharaj appears, and so Prahlad Maharaj is present in both the worlds simultaneously. Then he's explaining more about understanding of devotees in Goloka Vrindavan, like how we see Mother Yashoda, position of Mother Yashoda, and other devotees in Vrindavan, his cowherd boyfriends, and the gopis. So the cowherd boyfriends, they actually have same form as Krishna. We know from Brahma Vimohana Leela when Krishna, he expanded as the calves, the cowherd boys. So when Brahma, he was still confused what is happening here. Then just to clarify his confusion, Krishna transformed the cowherd boys, the calves, into Vishnu forms with four-handed forms. So then Brahma was like, oh, okay. So he had realization, and he realized, looks like I'm like making some mistake here. I better fix it really quick before it gets too late. So this is how we can understand, like there are different layers of understanding God. and actually interacting with God. Because a person who is Brahman realized, they can only relate to certain aspects of God. And then the Paramatma realized yogis, they can understand a little bit more, but then the devotees, they can actually have personal exchanges with the Lord. Just like how Mother Yashoda, she can never accept like Krishna is God. She would always find some reason to say that it's not because of Krishna, it's maybe because of Nanda Maharaj or some demigod or some other powers. Like she could never accept Krishna is God. She would accept Krishna as some special powers, but she would never accept. That's how is the mood of all the other devotees in Vrindavan. So this mood, how can we develop this mood? One very easy way is, of course, hearing about these pastimes, but especially in this month, hearing this beautiful prayer, Damodar Ashtakam prayer, is actually, if we really understand this prayer, we can realize these pastimes by meditating on this. That's one of the prayers in out of the 8 prayers there, that may these pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart, right? So that's what we are praying, but are we actually desiring for it to happen? Like consciously desiring? Yeah, many times I've caught myself just like saying the prayer and then, am I actually seriously saying it? Like in a group, sometimes you just like following, and it's like, are you actually, really focusing on it? Like one time we were having a discussion, the brahmacharis, and this Prabhu who was giving the class, he kind of paused for a moment and he asked a question, if people are even, and most of the devotees, they were like, so sometimes we can be doing things, but we may not be really attentive. And that's one of the things we pray every morning, that, we chant the Maha Mantra with attention. Because by attention, all other things becomes easier to follow. So by proper practice of bhakti, we can actually realize these things, especially by studying these bhakti shastras, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, Brahma Samhita. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions about Brahma Samhita. So he actually, I've heard Srila Prabhupada, he actually encouraged devotees to chant Brahma Samhita every day. And not only chant, like study and understand and remember it. Because we only have chapter 5 of Brahma Samhita that Lord Chaitanya found on his travels to South India. And there is like a full description of the spiritual world. So if we don't study it, how will we get to know what's the spiritual world like? There is only one verse I can think of that's there in the Bhagavad Gita, which Krishna spoke about spiritual world. Na tad bhashyate suryo na sasanko na pavaka tad katva nivartante. What's the last line? Tad dham paramam mama. Yeah. So that's the only verse I can remember. Does anyone know any other verse in the Bhagavad Gita talking about the spiritual world, specifically giving description? I mean, it doesn't really give like a description. So this one verse, Krishna actually gives a little more, how there is no need of sun, no need of electricity, this and that. It's like, why? Because just by the effulgence of Krishna, it's like, it's lit up. So the body of Krishna, just the last point to conclude with, is completely spiritual, and his close associates, they also have similar bodily features. When Krishna appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva, he didn't appear like ordinary child. He actually appeared like fully decorated with four-handed forms. And there were demigods like, you know, watching the whole scene, praying, showering flowers, this and that. So Mother Devaki, she was praying to Krishna, because you see, they even, like Vasudeva and Devaki, they still accepted Krishna is God, but the parental affection still took over their understanding of Krishna is God, because the parental affection was stronger than just knowing Krishna is God. So out of fear, Mother Devaki, she is asking Krishna, oh, please take ordinary two-handed form, so Kamsa wouldn't think he's something special. I mean, imagine, like, you know God is great, and why would you ask God, oh, what do you fear about Kamsa coming and killing you? You know? So, ordinary person can think like that, but this is how the advanced devotees, based on the relationship they have, they think in that way. So Mother Devaki, she's thinking Kamsa is gonna kill him, so please take an ordinary form. And so Krishna changed to two-handed form, but still she was afraid that still, even if you change to two-handed form, Kamsa is still gonna kill you. So she had this fear, even though they like Vasudeva and Devaki, they accepted that Krishna is God. Especially, he even mentioned that, you know, like he told them that these previous births, this is how I appeared as your child, and this birth, just to make sure that you understand I am God, so he appeared in four-handed form. But then he changed to two-handed form. But then, because he could see that they are still afraid, so he's like, okay, I give you a plan. Take me to Vrindavan, take me to Goloka. That's where there are devotees who won't fear about all this stuff. So take me there, and everything should be fine. So we know the rest of the pastime, how Vasudeva took Krishna to Vrindavan, and he exchanged with the daughter of Mother Yashoda, and then leads up to all the childhood pastimes. So we can meditate on these pastimes, especially this month is so special. We can try to memorize this beautiful prayer. You can sing it while you are taking bath. You can sing it anytime. There is no hard and fast rule. You're going for a walk, you can meditate on different aspects of it and see how these devotees who are actually performing this unalloyed devotional service. So there is the pure devotional service. That's the devotees in Vaikuntha perform to Narayan. And then there is pure unalloyed devotional service. That's the devotees in Vrindavan. I heard this in a lecture I was listening other day. I was like, that's an interesting insight I didn't notice before. So only the unalloyed devotees, they can relate to Krishna in these ways. But we may not be there, we cannot actually get there, but what we can do is we can glorify their position. We can aspire to be their servant. The mood of this being the servant of the servant of the servant. And like it said here, we can, just by serving these pure unalloyed devotees, we can also become pure devotees. Because our own sadhana, I may only have so much strength. Many times chanting japa, one may go to another state of consciousness, to sometimes people even transcend to sleep state. So we can see where our sadhana is. Our sadhana only has so much strength, but when we take strength from our spiritual master, from Srila Prabhupada, from the Acharyas, then we become strong. And that's what gives strength to our sadhana. And when we do that, we will experience it in our practice, in our service, and our service will expand also. So we should understand the power of these shastras and take shelter of them, and take shelter of these unalloyed devotees. The last thing I remember from Nectar of Instruction, text 8, it says one should perform devotional service in the mood of following in the footsteps of pure unalloyed devotees of the Lord. And there is, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada even gives example like following in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, like that. There are different rasas and different moods. So one should follow. But essentially in ISKCON, we can just follow our mood of our spiritual master. We can just follow the mood of Srila Prabhupada. And that makes everything easy to do, easy to follow, easy to practice. So yeah, this month we can take advantage of this opportunity to meditate on this wonderful pastime of Sri Damodar. Sri Damodar Vrat ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.